In this video, we're going to be going through equations with fractions. And can I just suggest that there is multiple ways to do it. But one thing I was really concerned about is that some of you, when you're working, if you're not going to get full marks if you get the answer wrong clearly, but some of you can achieve half to 2/3 of the marks if you show a clear method. And I'm going to certainly try my best to show you a clear method. The first method, though, I'm going to do this question using the bow tie method. Have we heard that before? Yes. Okay, let me just quickly go into what that is. Whenever I have two fractions, one on both sides of an equation, an equal sign, I'm going to do those two fractions here. Now, what the bow tie method is that if I have anything as on the denominator of this side, then this thing can go and move up there. And anything on the numerator on this side can move down there. And vice versa, it can do a little swapsy with this guy over here. So this guy over here I've just ticked can swap over with here. And if I have like just a little dash there, then that can, anything there can go up there. That's a method which I think a lot of kids will use. Maybe half of you will use. It also enables us to skip a step or one step, but if you do it this way, I can quite clearly see what you're doing. So I'm going to do that this way, but I'm going to use a different method for the next one. Okay, so the first thing is, let's write out what we're going to do. We have 5u over 2 and we're solving. So solving means that we want to find u in this case. We want to find the pronumeral. Not find u because, of course, each question has a different pronumeral. X's, W's, U's, etc. So what we're going to do is we have to write this out as a fraction. Now we can see that the left-hand side is a fraction. However, at the moment, the right-hand side isn't a fraction, but we do know that if I do 100 over 1, that is still a fraction, isn't it? Okay, it's a mixed, technically it's sort of a mixed number. It's 100, but it's the same as 100 over 1. And that enables us to use this, what method are we talking about? Starts with B? Bow tie, thank you. Now, using this method, anything which is over here, this 2, where can this 2 go? There. Well, I'm not sure there is what I was asking. The 2 can go over there. Now, the u we're solving for. So the u stays where it is. And unfortunately for us, the u is on the top, the numerator. So the u can stay exactly where it is. It can get tricky later when u is not on the numerator, but in this case it is. Another thing is this 5 here can go down there, can't it? Like so. So that's what we're going to do. And of course, I'm going to get the 2, and that's going to go over here. So let's write it out. Let's do it in 2 steps. We've got 5u over, if I get the 2 over there, I'm going to replace that with a 1, and I'm going to cross that out, and the 2 goes over here, but it's 2 times 100, don't forget. The 100 didn't go anywhere. It stayed there. And then on the bottom of that, we've got a 1, but I'm going to get that 5, and that 5 goes from here all the way down to the denominator on the other side. So that's going to be 5, and so I'm going to rub this out, and doing this in one step, that gives us, now we can simplify. So let me just zoom in a little bit. That's going to be 2 times 100, which is 200, and divided by 5. Now, some students ask me, well, what is the answer to that? Well, my advice is, well, let's just forget about this 0 existing. What's 20 divided by 5? 4. So we've got a 4, but we've got 200 divided by 5. So we simply just add a 0 on the end. So the answer to that is u is equal to 40. So if you haven't got that already, or if you've done a different method, that's fine. I'm going to go through maybe a different method now. And maybe that's the way you do it. But I do think that you need to really choose one of the 2 methods that I'm going to go through. So that's method 1, the bow tie method. I personally think that more students, if they use that, it's a bit of a shortcut. You're probably going to get the answer more right than if you use any other method, I think. Now let's do the same, but this time I want you to consider that really what we have over here is we do have another fraction. Yes, we could do the bow tie method, but what I'm going to do is we need to look at this one, and I've got what's happening to minus 3h or minus h? My apologies. What's happening to h? Well, you can see there it's multiplied by -3, but it's also divided through by 7. So in this case, you have to cancel out that using inverse operations. So when you're thinking about BODMAS, what we need to do is we need to isolate H, find out what H is, but we need to, well, there's no addition or subtraction. Forget about those for the time being, but there is division and multiplication. So the opposite to division is, of course, so the inverse of division is multiplication, and vice versa. The inverse of multiplication is division. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat this as two separate steps. This is a two-step equation, and I might sort of decide, well, okay, I'm going to deal with the divided by 7. So how do I deal with the divided by 7? What's the inverse operation of divided by 7? Multiply by 7. So that's the first step. So I want to see one of these two methods, please. Just trust me on this one. Now, if I multiply both sides by 7, I hope that you get the idea that that's going to, on the left-hand side, that's going to cancel out that 7. So if I had a 7 over here, 7 times, you can see there that those 7s are going to cancel out to 1 over 1. And on the left-hand side, we can simply write -3h. Okay, so we've dealt with that 7. Let's have a look on the left-hand side, or right-hand side, though. 7 times 6 is 42, but a negative times a positive is a negative. Now, as you can see here, we now have, that's our first step done. But at the moment, now we're multiplying h by -3. So what's the opposite of multiplying by -3, Emily? Dividing by -3. That's right. So we're going to divide the right-hand side by -3. We've created imbalance if we've just divided one side. So we have to divide two sides by -3. Now, what's going to be on the left-hand side? I'm cancelling out my -3 here. So what's going to just be h? Okay, good, h. And if I have -42 divided by -3, well, first of all, let's just work. 42 divided by 3 is 14. But the question is it positive or negative? It's positive. That's right. These negatives, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So, of course, the answer is positive 14 with that one. Now, just quickly, I'm going to pause this and I'm going to get a show of hands of what you prefer. Method 1, which is the cross multiplication. We'll call this method 1. And method 2, and I want to get a show of hands of the 20 students that are in here, which one you prefer. Okay, so let me just pause this for a second. Okay, and so getting back to this, girls, so we all agreed that we prefer method 2, where we're doing it one step at a time. We're not using the bow tie method. Some of you might prefer, but we had a vast majority of girls in here that would prefer to use method 2. So we're going to stick with method 2 for the time being. Some of you might decide later on to change it. Now, let's have a look. First of all, we've got to look at the thing which is furthest away from our pronumeral x. Now, at the moment, though, we have a multiplication and division. We have a multiplication and division, but at the moment, what's furthest away from the x here on the same side as x? +3. So we need to deal with that first, which is -3. Okay, so what we're going to do is now, if we're subtracting 3 from both sides, that leaves us with 4x over 3 is equal to what? What's the right-hand side? 15 minus 3, which is 12, isn't it? Okay, so that's one step. So this is a 3-step problem. Now we will get to 4 and 5-step problems, I'm pretty sure. But for the time being, now we've got this. Now we're going to stick to the same method. Emma, what's happening to x? We're doing what to x at the moment? On the left-hand side, what's happening to x? It's multiplied by? Okay, so it's multiplied by 4 and it's divided by 3. So which one would you like to do first? Okay, so she wants to get rid of the division first. That's fine. So we're timesing the left-hand side by 3, which means we have to times the right-hand side by 3. Now that's going to cancel out the 3, of course. So we've got left with 4x is equal to 12 times 3, which is 36. And of course, Abby, what's the last step? Good. So you're dividing the left-hand side by 4, which is the inverse of timesing by 4. That's going to be x, and 36 divided by 4, which is equal to 9. Very good. 9 is your answer. Well done. Okay, I'm going to leave that up there for those that are finishing that. Now, this one's a little bit different because what I want you to consider is that this 2w plus 7 is all divided by 3. The confusion is a lot of girls think that, a lot of boys and girls at your age sort of think, well, let's subtract 7 from both sides. But unfortunately, that's, if I wanted to consider, that is the same as 2w divided by 3 and then 7 divided by 3. These statements are exactly the same. These statements are exactly the same. So what I'm saying is you cannot simply subtract 7 because, in actual fact, that's 7 over 3 if you were to expand it out. What we need to do, though, is we need to cancel out this fraction. So I'm going to rub this out for a bit, and I'm going to rub this out for a bit, and we need to cancel out this divide by 3. There's no other way to do it. So how do I cancel out divide by 3? Very good. Thank you, Emily. Let's do that. Now, what do we have left on the left-hand side? Thank you. All right. What do we have on the left-hand side? Someone? The left-hand side? 2w plus 7. Shh. We've just cancelled out this is to cancel out the divide by 3. So we're left with 2w plus 7. And, of course, what we need to do is we need to multiply the right-hand side by 3, which is 15. Okay, what's furthest away from this w? What's furthest away from the w? The plus 7. Good. So we're going to do what to this equation? Well done, Alice. Well done. Very good. Now, what we're left over with? What's left over on the left-hand side, Alice? 2w is equal to 8. That is correct. And now, as you know, guessing and checking would work. We're dividing by 2. W is equal to 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now, I'm going to encourage, since most of you chose that method, that's what you need to show me in order to really do these and get full marks for them. I saw some crazy methods, which I do think are not going to score many marks, okay? If you do this method correctly and you make a silly mistake, you could get 2 out of 3 marks, no problem. If you are doing your method where you're simply writing an answer, that is not going to get you full marks. Okay, now the last one, we're just turning a sentence into some algebra and we're going to solve it. So this is really no different. We've got a number y which tripled, so how would we write that? 3y, so we've got 3y and then 7 is added, plus 7, that's right. The result is halved, so that's over 2, and the answer is minus 4, that's right. Now we've got to solve for y again. The trick with this one, though, is a lot of people will try to deal with this plus 7. But remember, as I've said, it's all divided by 2. You can even write some little invisible brackets around that. So we can't deal, remember, BODMAS, we deal with the brackets last. We're working our way up here. So if you use brackets there, you can see that B for bracket, that's the last thing we deal with. So in other words, let's get rid of that divide by 2 by timesing by 2. Thank you. Okay, first step is timesing by 2. That is 3y plus 7 is equal to 4 times 2 is 8. Negative times a positive. So it's a negative 8. Very good. And now, what's furthest from the y? Let me zoom right in. What's furthest from the y? The plus 7. So we need to do the inverse of that, which is minus 7, minus 7. So we're left with 3y. Now, I was asked this question, and this is a really common mistake. A lot of people think we need to evaluate minus 8 minus 7. Now, just remember, when we're multiplying two negative numbers, it's a positive. But when we're adding two negative numbers, then we need to go back to, if you're really confused, I want you to go back to the number line. If I have -7 and I'm subtracting negative or adding -8, we're going this way. We're coming more and more negative. So what's the answer to this? The answer to that is -15. Okay, so we've got 3y is equal to -15. So our final step is what? Divide by 3. Fantabulous. And what's my answer then? Y is equal to, what's 15 divided by 3, girls? 5, but a negative divided by a positive is a negative. The answer is y is equal to -5. So that's about it for this. If you were to do these questions and look over these before your test, definitely for fractions, working with fractions, these are much harder than your basic sort of 2 or 3 step problems without fractions. So my advice would be, this would be a good video to watch for 15 minutes before your test and even when you're doing your coursework. So I'm going to